all the power bank modules that I've tried and which ones work and which ones don't. What I was specifically searching for was one that could do 100 watts for laptop charging or whatever device needed that much power. And unfortunately, I spent a lot of money and got a lot of modules that don't do 100 watts. And from what I've found so far, there's only two out there, major ones that you can find easily, that are easily identifiable to, that can handle 100 watts. The other ones, I don't know why they don't do 100 watts. I don't know if it's a thermal issue. Someone thinks the SW2303 might have issues where the MOSFETs aren't capable of handling that specific application. So, I even went out of my way and bought these copper heat sinks, what I assume are probably the best you can get as far as tiny heat sinks. I believe these are 8 by 8 by 11, so they are pretty small. And these are actually bigger than the ICs they would be going on. For instance, the SW2303. Greatest. So I'm pretty sure this is the PL5501, and up here is the SW2303. As you can see, this is definitely larger than both of them. And on this specific board, I made the mistake of using thermal paste. I didn't have any thermal tape at the time, so it's something I need to try, because if you use thermal paste and you use just ever so much, you don't need hardly any at all when you use it. When you go to squish this down, it'll come over the edges and get in the pins, and once it gets in the pins, it's even worse than before. If the board only did 60 watts before, it'll not even get up to 30 then, because it's just so crammed full. I've tried everything I could to clean this. Thankfully, or not thankfully, I wasted my money. I bought 3 of these. So I have tested one of these that did not get thermal paste on it at all. Fresh out of the bag. Didn't do 100 watts. This one never did either. But I'm actually going to start with just some of the other ones that I thought were cool. If you're just trying to get a little QC 3.0 module, you got these 2 different options right here. I'm sure there's more than these 2, but I noticed, I didn't realize I bought these first, and then I bought these second, and I thought they were the same. I didn't really care that they were different inductors. But actually, this one is quite a bit smaller, so it's got a much smaller footprint. So I would probably go with this one. I think I used this one on a little project box, put 2 of them in there. I have a little 5521 adapter in the back. I charge my 18650s and 21700s with my X-Star chargers plugged into here. Works just fine. So here's 3. 9.4. Whereas this one is 20.3. Should be roughly the same height. So these, you just search USB QC 3.0 modules, and you can find those really easy. They're a little expensive on Amazon, I noticed. Even a 5-pack of them is like 15 bucks almost. I'd probably say look on Aliexpress for these. You can get them for $2 a piece. There's also a 30-watt one out. There's also a little module out there that has, I think it's a USB-C input with a USB-A output, and it's like a 3.1 amp output and input. I haven't tried that one yet. I was looking at it, but honestly, I'd probably be more interested in the other one. And then this one, I got it for $6. I just couldn't help myself. When they make these 4-channel ones, I just think they're kind of cool. So all I've done is I've plugged this in and just checked it with my FNB48. And yeah, it works. I haven't stress tested all 4. The only thing I'm a little concerned about here is these 55, I don't know if this is a 21 or 25. Either the pin inside is either 2.1 millimeters or 2.5 millimeters. I can't remember which. These are really only good for 10 amps at the most. So if all 4 of these were, say, pulling 3 amps, that's 12 amps. I guess they give you the option to wire it up here in the back too. And they also give you some holes for putting like standoffs in there or something. That's nice of them. But yeah, $6. Can't beat this. So this is the SW3516. Yeah, you're not going to be able to read that on my potato phone, but it is USB-A, USB-C. If you use both of them at the same time, it's only 5 volts, which is pretty common amongst these things. If it's only a single channel but has 2 outputs or inputs, then if you use both of them at the same time, you're only going to get 5 volts. So this thing goes up to 60 watts, has pretty much every fast charging protocol you could imagine. And then there's the SW3518 and the SW3518 Plus. Or no, SW3518S. The SW3518S, I know that one does 100 watts. I don't know about the regular SW3518. And I know the reason for these different models is I think because of the VOOC charging protocol, which I had never heard of before. It must be some Asian thing, I'm guessing. But yeah, the SW3516 does 60 watts. It's a great little module. It's not big at all. The only catch is I prefer the buck boost modules that could run off a 4S pack, because I think anything larger than a 4S pack is kind of unwieldy. This is a buck only module. So you have to give it, they say you have to give it at least 21 to output 20 if you're trying to get the 20 volts, 3 amps for 60 watts. So 49.4. Just shy of 18. See if the caps are taller. Nope. So I really like this one for charging phones. This is great because, you know, your phone's not doing more than 30, 40, 50 watts depending on what you have. I guess if you have a Samsung, or, you know, if you're somewhere in Asia or something, you may have a phone that does 50 or 60. But these little things are great. You know, the only catch is if you need more than 12 volts, you have to provide more than 12 volts. I've found, though, that I don't have to provide 1 volt over. I could go down as low as 20.3 and still get a stable 20 volts on the output for this. So it might vary with your mileage, who knows. Remember, SW3518S is the one that does 100 watts. I want to get one of those, and actually what I want to get is similar to this. It's a 4-channel version, just because it looks cool. It'd be cool to slap in a project box, and boom, you got one little thing to wire up or attach a DC barrel jack, and you're technically good to go, even though, like I said, in that case, if you had 5 amps coming out of each one and you had 4 of them, that's 20 amps. That's got to be too much for this, but I could be wrong. And SW2303, I was so excited when I saw these boards. Actually, let's start with this one first, because this is the first one I got. This is the one that got me so excited. February 22nd store, or Feb 22nd store on Aliexpress. They're the major vendor I look at for these higher output modules. They kind of... I don't think they're actually the ones making anything. They may have some connections to whoever is taking these ICs and putting them on boards and finding a design that works for them, or works, because they seem to come out with stuff first. They also have their own like DIY power banks where you just slap the cells in there, but that uses the IP5389, I think, and that's another problem one. But yeah, this one, SW2303, PL5501, don't get the acrylic case, guys, for any of these. Don't get the acrylic case. These things create a lot of heat. Putting them in here, it just turns it into an oven. You know, yeah, it protects it. Okay, but if this thing did output 100 watts, the acrylic case would be an issue. It would heat up even faster and then have thermal shutdown issues anyways. But yeah, it doesn't do 100 watts. Like all the other failures, it seems to cap out around 60. Doesn't want to go any further than that. I don't know why, like I said earlier. I've measured the ICs, and it seems that they get up to around 70 degrees Celsius or higher. But from what I've read, thermal shutdown for some of these ICs is like 160 degrees Celsius. So, I don't know, but no luck with this one, which kind of pissed me off. So I think then next I saw these, or I think I saw these next. And these were really cheap. I remember I got my first one for like $10, and then I bought a couple more for $11. Now they're like 12, 13, 14. You know, a little bit longer, just a hair, but not as wide at all. These are not bidirectional. You cannot charge the pack that's connected to this from this port. Whereas the other ones, the other ones I'm going to show you, you can. So these are output only. You would have to have something else like a little DC barrel jack like this connected to your pack that you could charge your pack through. So keep that in mind. This one, like I had said, even before I got the thermal paste stuck in the pins, didn't do 100 watts. Did 60, 65, and then would crap out. My electronic load would constantly shut down because this thing would shut down, which means the voltage would plummet. And I have a voltage cutoff, set super, super low, 3 volts, and it would crash down to 0. So yeah, that one doesn't work either. Save your money on that. The next one I got, this is based on the SC8812A, SC8812A, and I can't remember what the other chip is, and my vision's too bad to read it. This one works, guys. This is the 120 watt bidirectional full protocol fast charging, however February 22nd store has it labeled, but if you search 120 watt two-way or 120 watt bidirectional, you'll find this one. It works. Up to a full 120 watts, doesn't shut down on me. So I was pretty happy when I got this and it worked. Although at first it didn't. And I couldn't figure out why. And then I realized after watching a Great Scott video that I had never actually plugged a charger in and charged the pack through this. And once I did that, this thing worked. I don't know why that makes a difference, but yeah, that kind of activates it. So this is meant for a 4S pack. I think it's for a 4S only, whereas the other ones, you can use them down to 2S. 2S, 3S, 4S, 5S, even 6S, I think. Although, if you use the other ones with 5S or 6S, there's a transistor that has to be replaced, otherwise it'll blow up. Yeah, great quality control. So this is honestly the way to go. I think I paid a little more than 20 for this, but now if you shop around, you can find them for under 20 bucks. Or right at 18, 19, 20 bucks shipped. So this is probably the one that I'm going to use from now on just because it works well. But I also recently got the IP2368, and this is what they call the IP2368 Pro or Mini. It comes in this little case. It's aluminum, anodized. Actually, pretty nice little case here. It's got some holes so that the LEDs that light up for your capacity come through. If the fast charging thing's on, it's got a little light for that. Kind of silly. I thought this board was way bigger. I was expecting this to be an XT60. And when I got it, I was shocked to see that it was an XT30 and this board was this small. But I'm not complaining about that. It's about the same size as the 120 watt module. Whereas I'll measure this bad boy for you real quick. $73. $7. $18.7. The nice thing about this one too is I got this right at 20 bucks. Shopped around a little bit on Aliexpress, found one that was just a little bit $1 or $2 cheaper than the others. It comes with the other end of the XT30. This would be the female end, yeah. Which seems kind of backwards, but I'll explain to you why they do it that way. You would think this is the male end because you stick this in here, but actually it's the pins. That pin makes it the male end, and the reason why this is the female end, it will normally go on your battery, is because nothing can fall inside here and really short these two out together. Something could fall in there and short those two. So that's why this is usually the end you want on your battery pack. On here, you can adjust a bunch of the resistors, and changing the resistor values can change whether it's 2S, 3S, 4S, 5S, 6S, or how much capacity you have in one string of your batteries, meaning one series group. If you're just doing I have a 4S 1P pack, 4 cells in here, nicely wrapped in electrical tape, and you get some shrink wrap. And those are 18650s LGMJ1s, so they're 3500 milliamp hour cells. So the capacity for one string would be 3500. Trying to remember, you can also set this, I think, to even work with lithium iron phosphate or high voltage cells, the 4.35 volt cells. So you can adjust the maximum charge voltage. There's quite a few things you can adjust, but it's with these little SMD resistors, so it's not going to be the easiest work. But if you have, previous experience with SMD parts, you may be okay with it. Thankfully, it comes pre-configured for 4S, and I don't care about the fuel gauge, the capacity, because I don't, go off that. I can use a multimeter. And then this one I actually got before the IP2368. This board is based on the IP5389, which is underneath this capacitor here. And February 22nd store, they do make a board that's very similar in looks to this one. Doesn't look like this at all, but I saw this. This was sold by TZT, And I thought, you know what, that looks pretty cool because it's got multiple outputs. For inputs, this is an input only DC barrel jack. I believe input only USB micro, input only lightning, which is kind of unique. And then the USB-C is input and output. It's bidirectional, so you can charge your pack with it. And you think, awesome, I can charge my pack with this. There's a catch. It charges your pack really, really fast. I want to say using my 90-watt charger, it's putting in like a 5-amp charge. So if you have a 4S 1P pack, do you think 4 amps or 5 amps is a great charge rate for those? Absolutely not. Which is why when I do this one into a little project box with 4 cells or 8 cells, I plan on using P42As, Molicel P42As, because they can handle that charge rate. And also, a 4S1P pack could handle boosting the voltage from 12 volts up to 20 and outputting 5 amps, because that would be outputting about 7 or 8 amps from the cells. These 10 amp cells, that's working them really hard. You can't use salvage cells from a laptop to do this. If you want to output 100 watts, your cells are going to be putting out 8 amps at their peak output, over 8 amps. So keep that in mind. And they're going to be getting charged extremely fast if you charge them through the USB-C port. So actually, I'm going to plug this in. I think there's enough drawn out of this pack that it'll charge pretty fast. And this is a 4S 5P pack that I just kind of have sitting around that I do most of my testing on. .7 amps. And this is only a 90-watt charger. It's not a 100-watt. So we'd be at 6 amps or so. And I thought, okay, well, maybe if I change the resistor on here for the capacity for the fuel gauge, that would slow the charging rate. But after doing some more reading, I don't think that's the case. I don't think you can adjust the charging rate. On this TZT board, you can actually change the power. There is a resistor to set the output and input power. The output and input power work together on that one resistor. If they had separated it, that would make a lot more sense. That way you could have the charging rate only be like 30 watts. You could have the output be 100 watts. But no, they have to be the same. Kind of a bummer there, but again, like I said, that's the reason why you would want to use something like a Samsung 40T, a Molicel P42A. Lishen has their 2170, is it the LA or SA? I can't remember. So yeah, you would want to use a cell that could handle that. Because, using just any old cell you salvage out of a laptop is not going to cut it. Those cells you're pulling out of old laptops or old power banks, they have 4 or 5 amps output at most. So they're not going to be happy when you go to charge a laptop, your MacBook at 100 watts. They're going to get really hot really quick, and you might be in for a fun surprise, a fire that you can't put out because it's a lithium fire and regular fire extinguishers don't work for them. So I was just going to plug in a few of these and just show you how they don't work, or at least don't work as they're specified. So, boom, 20 volts. This right here triggers the 20. Really, really handy to have these cables. Better than the little boards and stuff. So 1 amp, no problem. 2 amps, no problem. We're just shy of 40 watts. 3 amps, no problem. 3.1, 3.2, 3.3, 3.4, 3. Yep, kicked us before we even got to 70. So let's try it again. Won't even kick back on at 3.2, which is part of the reason why a lot of people think this might be a thermal issue. You might be heating up the buck boost chip too fast, and that's causing the chip to cut out even earlier on the second time because it's already heated up. Okay, I was able to start it at 3 amps, but it should cut out pretty quick on me here. So we're just shy of 65 watts. 66 watts. Doesn't work. IP5389, save your money, doesn't output 100 watts. And I've tested it on more than just this pack. This power supply over here is adjustable, 0 to 48 volts, 0 to 10 amps. So I'll crank the amperage all the way up so I have the ability to pull 10 amps, and I'll set it to like 16.6, so just shy of a full 4S pack, and same thing will happen.